time again, a time that we're always super excited about. Yes, time to welcome you to another edition of the Coaching Hour, brought to you in proud partnership with Coaches Network South Africa. My name is Paul Rotherham. A very warm welcome. Joining me on this session once again are my two good friends and colleagues, Mary and Mareka. I'm sure they're both well. Who are we chatting with today, Mareka?
Yes, Paul, we once again have Jabu Msomi as our guest today. It's lovely to have her. She's a public speaker, NLP practitioner, and life coach. And this year we're talking about, dispelling a few myths. And the myth that we are going to talk about today is life should be fair to be enjoyable, which is going to be quite interesting because to me, I would probably be the one that believes that, yes, things have to be fair so that, I can be happy. So I think it's going to be a session for me this morning. So thank you so much, Jabba, for joining us. It's lovely to have you.
Thank you so much, Marika. Hello, Mary, and hello, Paul, and everyone listening this morning. It's an absolute pleasure once more to be, sharing this platform with you guys, and I look forward to an interesting conversation on fairness.
Yes, absolutely.
Does fairness
Um,
actually even exist?
that's the
Does
thing.
fairness even exist? That's a good one. Yes. I
Well,
don't know
when
if
you
Marika wants to say something.
no. I think before we get into all the questions, maybe just tell us briefly, again, because we haven't had you on for quite some time, just to quickly tell everyone who's Jabu, how did you get into the coaching space? Yeah, and then we can take it away.
Thank you so much. Actually, today's talk, it ties in beautifully with who I am. But just briefly, the reason that I'm sitting here today is because, throughout my journey of life, growing, in the village, getting into marriage and into big spaces like corporate and global, companies, I realized that, I had so much, to offer and to learn, but I had my own, I would say limitations and beliefs. And no, they were not working to my, to my advantage. And I sort of reached a point where I actually wanted to know exactly and find exactly who I am and who I was, in order to understand going forward, how am I going to navigate, life. So part of it was, I found myself being interested in, you know, doing coaching myself. Like I went on a coaching course. Somebody was coaching me for training. The reason I did that also was, to be able to impart the knowledge. But while I was doing that, that's when the whole transformation, happened to my own life. I found myself, you guys would know that I go around, referring to myself as a self-proclaimed queen, because when I went through transformation, NLP training, I realized that, oh my gosh, I have so much power within me and I can actually do and achieve whatever that I want to achieve. Now that I was aware of my past traumas, of my limiting beliefs and the narratives that I believed before that no longer serve me. So I'm here now empowering especially women in leadership, because I've realized also that we grow, in terms of age, and we advance in our careers, but there's always that thought that I'm not good enough, or maybe because I'm this, then I cannot be this. So that's what brings me here. Obviously, there's a lot, that I've been through as a person, as part of life and growing. But it brings me here today, and I just love people, and I just love seeing people thriving in any day, and I would do anything just to see the next person thriving in their own space and in their own environment, whatever it means to them.
Yeah. I think that's why we bring these podcasts to the world, because we have people from all over the world enjoying them, is to really try and help you to become, it sounds horribly cliched, but the best version of you. And no matter who we speak to, no matter what the coaching modality is, I think Mary and Mareka will both agree in their role as coaches. Our aim here is for you to be able to live your best life. It doesn't matter how you're achieving it, what you're doing, but I think so many people can just mush their way through life, not really understanding that there's incredible power within them. So let's help you discover it. That's the aim of this podcast. The aim of today is dispelling these myths. And as Mareka said, fairness. And my question was, does fairness actually even exist? And what is fairness?
Thank you. I'm taking Paul. You'd like me to answer that. What is fairness?
Well, you're the expert here. Yes. So
So, okay, let me share a story rather. So, there's always a belief, for certain people that if you do something, there must always be something in return. Then there's fairness. I'll just make that example and that distinction. You feel that you are treated in accordance with what you deserve, if there's such a thing. Unfortunately, life doesn't work like that. Life works, I would say life is what you make of it, to start with. It doesn't mean that I've invested so much in empowering people that in turn I'll naturally be empowered by so many people. Just as an example, maybe a relevant example. So fairness, as we say, is a belief that, I deserve this because I'm this. I don't deserve this. I do not deserve to be treated badly because I'm such a nice person, And I'm saying that literally because it's one of the myths and the beliefs that I've had to dispel myself. I'm naturally a people pleaser, if you might say so. I often say to people, my name is Jabu Msomi. So if you translate it, it's like you have been made happy, or you're going around making people feel happy, and so it's a challenge on its own. But why I'm saying that is that as loving and as jabulisile as I am, then I'm going to go around expecting fairness, that everyone is going to be smiling at me and treating me with fairness and kindness. Life doesn't work like that. I hope you get the gist of it in as
I,
far as fairness is concerned.
I do, and I'd like to bring Mary into this just briefly because I know Mary, in your role, not only as a coach, but I think as a person, there's almost this karmic belief and this understanding that in life, what you put out is generally what returns. And I would almost argue that that in itself is kind of a fairness, because if you are a nasty, horrible person who doesn't treat people well and you abuse animals, generally that comes back to you in some way, shape, or form. And you could argue that that was fair. At the same time, or unfair when it happens to people who you think don't deserve it. I mean, at the same time, I listen to the news and I look at what some of our politicians in this country get away with. The millions that are squandered and the massive mansions and fabulous holidays and wonderful sports cars that these people have. And I just think to myself, well, that is the definition of unfair. So, in that sense, I think it exists very much in the real world. But, Mary, your views on this, and you'll need to unmute yourself because I think this does speak to a lot of what you teach.
Yes, so we use the way that it is, the way that I understand it is that we are a collective mind. So we all participate in this energy field of thought. And whether you like it or not, we are participating in the breakdown of whatever is around us because of what we say and what we think. Because the more you focus on things that are not working, the more they will not work. So it's that law of cause and effect, or the polarity law, But at the end of the day, there has to be the polarity law that takes the lead, because you can't have a dark and not have a light. You can't have a problem and not have a solution. There is a solution to every single problem. And that's how I see the fair. So what you put in, you get out. And whatever you think, you project. And the world will project that same thing back to you.
Jabu?
I hear Mary. I'm thinking as she's sharing that we literally live in the world of a double standard, where she's saying what you put in is what you get out. And then if we want to bring this back to this conversation, and we all, understand NLP, how it works, that what you actually, what you tell your mind is gonna manifest. Okay, let me make an example that when you're working this hard and believing that if you work hard, you stay disciplined and do all the right things, you're believing that life would be fair to you, right? As an example. But sometimes it's not gonna work like that, the fact that you are thinking about fairness rather than saying, okay, I'm putting, so much work, I'm staying disciplined because this is what I want for me. But then you are saying you want the world to be fair to you. I think that's where the distinction is, and then if it doesn't work, the way you have planned, then, I'll take it back to myself. Then you start beating up yourself. You start internalizing stuff that, I'm not good enough, or I'm a failure, or something is wrong with me. Maybe let me pause it there, Paul.
So in a world where fairness doesn't exist, what can we do about it, Jabu? What should we be doing? How should we be living our lives? What should we be telling ourselves?
Okay, that's a good one. So let me just turn things around and say fairness does exist, but the most beautiful fairness that will exist will be within you, right? So, because in most cases, as people, we go around, wanting to project or wanting to, to be treated fairly, but mostly we don't understand fairness and self-love and, to our own self, if you know what I mean. So rather than focusing on the environment and to be fair to us, what is it that I'm doing for myself, and what is it that I'm expecting as an outcome, irrespective of what happens, that will be fair to me? Because life is actually neutral, if I may say so, and we want to understand life as a map, to say, if I do this, then that. But life is what you will make or what you will think of it. So rather than thinking of life, in NLP, we say the map is not the territory. Life is neutral. Our thoughts are the map. So what you make of it, what you think of it, is going to be either fair to you or unfair to you, So fairness is a big thing that everyone wants to go around being treated fairly. But in the absence of it, what is it that works for you? What is it that, irrespective of what happens around me, that is not fair? We make an example, as you have alluded, Paul, to politics and other, social, challenges that surround us. So many things are unfair, but we can't go around, beating around or, complaining that life is not fair to me. Life is what you make of it, in the presence of all the challenges, whether it's global warming. Just now we literally, melting, Mary was sharing, we can't go around saying life is not, is not fair. I'll make an example. I do not have air conditioning in my house, right? Or in my bedroom, so to speak. And for some reason, I was just not wanting to buy a fan. Until recently, I said, no, I have to get a fan. And guess what? Now I'm sleeping peacefully. But for the past 3 weeks, I've been melting at night and complaining to say, no, man, so I'm just making a literal and, something that we can actually all, understand, to say life, I've actually learned that life will never be fair, as much as we are always yearning for fairness, but it's what you make of it that is more important.
Something else, I think, and this perhaps speaks to the spiritual side of us, and that is that there are those who believe that regardless of the outcome and what we are faced with and our challenges, everything is happening exactly as it should be happening. So for us at the time, and I'm going to give a very basic example, let's say you've been working really hard to apply for a job. It's your dream job. It's where you want. It's a great salary. It's the company you've been aspiring to be associated with. And at the last hour, you're in there, you're a top candidate. At the last hour, you don't get the job. Most of our, and I'll use myself as an example, I think, because I would feel that way, is most of us are going to be dejected, depressed, sad, frustrated. And to bring it to this conversation, we're going to feel that that was very unfair. This was our dream job. It's what we were owed. The world owed us that job. I was the perfect candidate and so on. What you might not realize at the time when you're going through referring to how unfair everything is that actually in 3 months' time, you are going to be given an opportunity that is 10 times better, that wasn't even on your radar, that you had no idea even existed. And sure, I'm not living in cloud cuckoo land where I think that always happens, but I do think that sometimes we only see a very small part of the puzzle. And I have experienced that in my own life, where at the time you're so zoomed in on this little piece and it's not as you want it to be. And you think it's terrible, it's mismatched and life sucks. But as you go through that stage and your journey progresses, as you start zooming out on this picture, you realize, hang on, that piece was exactly where it needed to be. And actually, as a result of that, wow, look at where I am now. So I think fairness is also time-based in the sense of where we are at that time in our lives, to look at that little snapshot and say, well, at the moment it might appear unfair, but guess what? In 2, 3 months from now, I've landed a dream job. And that's just a practical example. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, ladies.
Well, you're speaking about the law of least effort, where you accept everything as it is, because the universe is as it is. All the laws are governing, the principles and the laws of the universe govern the whole cosmos. So you accept everything as it is. That is the law of least effort. And whether it's a situation, a person, a circumstance, you don't blame yourself or others. And you take responsibility for your situation. So let's take your example for the job that you didn't get. So the responsibility would be, okay, there is something better. There must be something better. I didn't get this job because there is a better job opportunity waiting for me. That's taking responsibility for the situation. And then be defenseless. Don't put your opinions on anybody. Be open to everybody's opinion. Be attached to nothing and be open to everything. And when you adopt that law, life becomes easier. You don't suffer rejection. You don't suffer poor me. You're looking at the light all the time. I'm not saying that you won't be disappointed. Of course you're going to be disappointed, but take responsibility for the disappointment. Okay, I'm disappointed. I thought this was going to be for me. Now it's not. I'm aware of the disappointment. Forgive myself, forgive others, and just move on.
I think a metaphor that you've often used that creates such a lovely picture is the river. You know, the river is going to make its way to the sea. No matter how it gets there, it doesn't come up against a rock and go, oh no, I can't make it to the sea. Now I'm stuck. What am I going to do? The river flows and it goes around whatever obstacles are there. And I know that that's something that both yourself and your daughter, who's my wife, for some context, Zena, lives by, is the adage that you need to be fluid and flexible. And if you've got your heart set on getting to this point and it doesn't quite work, well, no problem. You go around and just as a river would, you allow life to take you where it's taking you. Because the more that you try and backpedal and go against that stream and against that flow, the harder life is going to be. Jabu?
Wow. Wow, thank you, Paul, and thank you, Mary. As you are both sharing, I'm just reflecting, what the story that you shared, Paul. I resonate again very much with it. I worked for a corporate company of my dream, You know those companies when you drive past or when you walk past you or when you see an elder in my case in the village, when I grow up, I want to work for this company. Quick story, I landed a job there, and within 2 years, I was impacted by restructuring and I was retrenched. And I was sobbing, crying, because when our executive told us that, you know, from Monday, this is the process, and by end of this month, it will be out the system. I was crying my lungs out. You know, long story short, I'm 8 years down, another organization that I think if that push or that experience didn't happen, you know, I wouldn't have actually appreciated the fact that things happen exactly the way they're meant to be, as you mentioned, Paul. And, you know, as people, we need to learn, but also we need to unlearn certain things. Like when we talk about fairness, you know, we need to unlearn that fairness is a prerequisite for peace or for joy or, you know, for breakthroughs, for an example. And we need to avoid questions, you know, like, why is this happening to me? As Mary was alluding to something similar, you know, it's not about you, but step back, take a step back and ask, you know, yourself a question like, what is this teaching me, you know, about myself or about the state that I'm in currently? That then helps, you know, with actually, you know, stabilizing your emotional state. Because as I'm sharing my story, that, you know, after that meeting, it was on a Friday, the whole weekend, you know, I went to my family and I was sobbing, you know, because now the mind is racing. But the moment you're like, okay, hold on, you know, step back. Okay, this is the reality. Okay, then what now? You know, so we learn and unlearn certain things, you know, in as far as, you know, fairness is concerned, and even our internal dialogue now, it changes, you know, to say, okay, this is what I've experienced, and this is how I'm feeling about it, but how can I, you know, change the state of mind just so that it serves me, so that I'll be able to, you know, to think properly. You know what now? It's like when you're involved in an, you know, in an unexpected situation, you know, as much as everything must go, you know, very, very, very quick, but you could save your life just by, sorry, my lights are going on and off, just by, you know, removing yourself. It sounds easier. I mean, they say it sounds easier, you know, then it's done. But you just remove yourself and say, what is this? How do I navigate this? So fairness is like that. You know, people will all, you know, you will never experience, you know, a situation where you are treated or the environment treats you with fairness all the time. But again, we say, take it back to you. How can I do things differently? But also take a pause, you know, because now we wanna react. The mind, you know, is saving you as well. The mind is like, oh, okay, unfairness, you know. That's why it happens in spaces, you know, in corporate spaces, you know, when we talk about, you know, different things, even like, you know, I'll use the word racism, allow me, where just a person is innocently saying something, but just there you see unfairness and you want to block yourself. The mind is like, oh, you know, I'm being treated unfairly here. But if you took time just to reflect on what the person was saying or doing, you'd realize that maybe they're coming from, you know, a certain perspective and not necessarily trying to project some, you know, sort of unfairness towards you.
Yeah, I think you've hit the nail on the head there to wrap up, Jabu, and that is that it's very subjective. You know, I'm thinking now about things that have happened in my life that at the time have felt very unfair. And I compare them with my gardener, Horacio, who is from Mozambique. He's living here legally in South Africa, so he should be here, but his family is back in Mozambique. And his family live in Shai. And you will know if you've watched the news at all that a couple of months back they had the most incredibly devastating floods. And as a result of that, his family there, they're all still alive, but they lost absolutely everything. And when I say everything, I mean the physical structure of the home that was built, every possession they had, everything went from the last pair of shoes to the last pots and pans. They were left with whatever clothes they had on when they managed to get out of where they were when the floods hit. And it happened extremely quickly. Those water levels rose in a matter of minutes. My point is, you look at someone like that, and not once in the time that we've spoken about it, he comes here weekly and does our garden and helps with things. Not once has he ever expressed a feeling of life being unfair. He hasn't complained about it in the sense that, woe me, and life sucks and it's terrible and I'm a victim, and none of that. He's accepted the facts and he's making plans to rectify the situation. He's doing what he can to earn more money. He's trying to get more jobs, more work. He's asked us for help if there's anything that we have that we're throwing away that might be able to help him rebuild. You compare that with someone else who's perhaps living in such a small world that, I don't know, you take your car to the car park and you go and do your shopping in Woolies, and when you come out, somebody's brushed their trolley up against your car, and your immediate response is, oh my gosh, the world is so unfair. Somebody's dinged my car. And I think sometimes we need to zoom out and have a look at the big picture and look at what it is that we are referring to as unfair, to realize that actually, in the bigger scheme of things, we haven't got a clue. Somebody whose child was killed recently in that terrible taxi accident where it had the head-on collision with the truck. That's unfair. It really is. You missing out on getting that special on Amazon, that's not unfair. Yes, it's not nice, and I'm not saying that it's something that we should just accept. There are always things that we're not going to agree with. But, fairness has degrees, and unfairness likewise. And sometimes just a little bit of perspective, because I guarantee you what you think is unfair, have a chat with the people around you, and all of a sudden your perspective will change or could change.
I like that, Paul. And as you were saying that maybe fairness is also subjective, if I heard you correctly. And also it's how we make of it, as you making a distinction of somebody losing their loved one and somebody losing a special, losing a special on, one of the online, shopping platforms. It's how we make of it, and it's the magnitude of if you feel that you treated unfairly, or there's an unfair situation around you, how you make of it and how much you spend your time thinking about it. That's where NLP comes into place as well. For an example, I'm thinking as part of reframing, ourselves, and our minds towards, embracing unfairness so much, or fairness rather, to say, instead of focusing on life to be fair towards us all the time, we'd rather, consider focusing on, practicing gratitude. When you practice gratitude, your mind, it goes around, trying to find even the smallest things and appreciating even the smallest things, in the sense that even when you lose the biggest things, you actually say, okay, this was, I had no control of this, but you kind of find yourself in a peaceful place. Yes, it's not like it's gonna be like that all the time. We are human and we have feelings once more. But I've learned in life that if you focus on practicing gratitude, even waking up in the morning and say, oh, I woke up, appreciating the flowers in your garden, whatever you want to appreciate, or even appreciating yourself, as a self-proclaimed queen. I look at the mirror and say, girl, we're going to rock this day. That alone, rather than thinking how unfair the day is going to be, because whether we like it or not, we know that there are things that are now like standard. From driving, there will be some sort of unfairness that will happen. When you get to work, there's always things that we feel like they're not fair, and life is just like that. Even in relationship, for married couples, you go home, you feel like your partner wasn't so fair. But if we change our minds around and and look out, and train our mind to look out for the most beautiful and the simplest things that we can focus our minds on. And just maybe in closing, also, Paul, you said something very profound to say, let's not focus on the loss, or let's not put more focus on what happened to us, or let's rather focus on the fact that whatever is meant to happen is gonna happen, you know? And it's how we make of it. I could, seated here just a week ago, somebody said to me, a colleague said, I think you should be writing a book about what you've experienced in the past 2 years or so. It's big things, but people, when I go around, those close to me, they ask me, how do you do it? But I feel like it's exactly your words, Paul, to say, we know that the universe is actually in control, and ours is just to be in control of our own self and be protective of our own self and love ourselves, enough to practice gratitude, even in the spaces where even when we feel like we are being treated unfairly.
I think it's a wonderful way to end. Mary, you wanted to jump in?
There's a quote by Norman Vincent Peale. He was one of the coaches many years ago. And he said, for every adversity, there's an equivalent or greater benefit. And our responsibility for success is to look for that benefit, look for that greater benefit.
100%. Ladies, I'm going to say thank you very much for your time. Jabu, thank you so much. We always like to leave our guests, giving them the opportunity to promote where people can find them across the socials or perhaps a website. So maybe you can just give us that before we close today.
Thank you very much to you, Paul, Mary, Marika. It's been an absolute pleasure spending time with you once more in this platform. So our website is www.jfmcoaching.co.za. We are also on Facebook, JFM Coaching, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here again.
Did you say JFM?
JFM Coaching, correct.
And if I may ask, what does the JFM stand for, Jabu? Obviously, your name, I would assume, Jabu.
Exactly. So it's my initials, literally my initials, So it's Jabu, it's Faith, it's Msomi. That's where it all started. So we run by it's JFM Coaching. People will say it does sound like a radio station.
Yes.
I guess then it's strong as a bread, but story for another day, Paul. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. We always appreciate that. And I think the one takeaway from today is gratitude. Just being thankful for what you have and realizing that the world is actually not a terrible place. There's a lot to love and a lot to be thankful for. Thank you. We're grateful that you joined us today to be part of this conversation, even if you're silently just watching on your phone or your laptop from home or work. Remember, if you do have any comments, pop them in the comments section. Marika very kindly will upload this across our Coaching Hour socials. The Coaches Network South Africa page is where you can find that. And if you do have any questions or comments, all our contact details will be on those platforms. So thank you so much from myself, Paul, from Mary, Marika, and today's guest, Jabu. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the Coaching Hour. Bye-bye for now.